Well, let's discuss this now with Wendel Trio. He's a climate change science and policy analyst joining us from Brussels. Wendel, it's good to have you on the program. The COP president had quite a lot to say, of course, about this deal. He hailed it as historic, but not everyone is happy with it. Let's just take a quick listen to this reaction from a member of the Pacific Island delegation.
To the conclusion that the course correction that is needed has not been secured. We have made an incremental advancements over business as usual when what we really needed is an exponential step change in our actions and support. Mr. President, in paragraph 26, we do not see any commitment or even an invitation from parties to peak emissions by 2025.
So, Wendel, what do you make of that reaction? Do you agree with her?
Yes, I think it's very clear that, yes, this statement or these conclusions coming out of the COP is an important step forward, but it is not kind of the revolution that we would need in order to keep the 1.5 target of the Paris Agreement really in sight. So much more will be needed, and that's what the representative from Samoa has made very clear, that this is indeed a step forward, but more action will be needed. And of course, finally, the litmus test of the value of what is coming out of Dubai will depend on what countries do with it and whether they actually follow the recommendations that are enshrined in the declaration, or whether they will more or less continue doing business as usual, because previous conclusions from previous conferences also have made strong statements, but they have not necessarily been implemented in the way that it is needed.
Yeah, the implementation, of course, the most important thing here. Wendel, are there parts of this new deal that set specific targets and give a timeline for the transition from fossil fuels?
Actually, the very specific targets related to energy are limited in the sense that, yes, the document says that countries will transition away from the use of fossil fuels in the energy system, but the target for doing that is 2050. Now, 2050 is a very long time away from where we are now, so people had been hoping that there would also be a reference to the need to peak fossil fuel use and decline during this decade, so before 2030. Unfortunately, that has not been taken up in the resolution. There is a reference to science saying that we need to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases by 43% by 2030, but it is more a reference to what science is saying. It doesn't say that countries commit to contribute to that 43%. So all in all, I think with regard to, let's say, the short term, the 2030 deadline, actions are relatively vague. And that's one of the challenges, of course, of this document.
And these summits are challenging as a whole to get so many countries to agree on things that are very specific. Do you think the world is going to meet this goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees within a certain timeline?
That is still the ambition that comes out of this declaration and that many countries are committing to. The reality is that we are not at this moment on a trajectory to reach that 1.5 target. The latest assessments coming out of the United Nations say that we're heading towards something like 2.5 degrees. So there is still kind of a contradiction to what people are saying and what they are really doing. At the same time, science says it is still possible. So if countries really can accelerate their action, then it might still be possible. But for the moment, we're not really on that trajectory. We hope, of course, that the outcome of the COP in Dubai can help us. And it is the first time that there is such a strong recognition of the need to tackle the use of fossil fuels. So that's an important step forward, but much more needs to be done, unfortunately.
An important recognition indeed, and hopefully the implementation will come with that. Wendel Trio in Brussels, thank you so much.
Okay, my pleasure.